It was a cold evening in a quiet town in Ohio, United States. The sun had already disappeared behind the trees, and the streets were slowly becoming empty. Inside a small biker clubhouse on the edge of town, a group of bikers sat around a wooden table. Their leather jackets carried the name of their riding club, a brotherhood known for helping people in need. They were laughing and talking after a long ride when suddenly, knock, 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 knock. The door was soft, almost hesitant. One of the bikers, a tall bearded man named Jake, walked to the door and opened it. Standing there was a little girl no older than 8. Her face was pale, her eyes full of tears, and her small hands were shaking. Jake knelt down gently. Hey kid, are you okay? The girl looked up at him, trying to hold back her tears. My grandpa, she whispered. The bikers behind Jake went quiet. What about your grandpa? Jake asked softly. The little girl wiped her eyes. Some men, they beat him and took his money. He can't get up. For a moment, the entire room froze. The laughter was gone. The warmth of the clubhouse turned into silence. Jake slowly stood up. Where is he? He asked. The girl pointed down the street. He didn't have to say a word. Within seconds, chairs scraped the floor as 12 bikers stood up at once. Leather jackets zipped. Boots hit the ground. One of them grabbed a first aid kit. Another grabbed his motorcycle keys. Kid, Jake said gently, kneeling again. You're safe now? Show us the way. The girl nodded and climbed onto the back of Jake's motorcycle. Moments later, the quiet street echoed with the deep roar of engines. Neighbors peeked out their windows as the biker convoy rode down the road. They stopped behind a small grocery store parking lot. And there, on the cold pavement, lay an old man. His clothes were torn and his face was bruised. He was barely conscious. The little girl jumped off the bike and ran to him. Grandpa! Jake rushed over and knelt beside the old man. Sir, can you hear me? The man slowly opened his eyes. I'm okay, he whispered weakly. Just my wallet. They took everything. One biker quickly wrapped a jacket around him to keep him warm. Another biker called an ambulance. The little girl held her grandpa's hand tightly. Don't worry, Grandpa. They came to help. They came to help. The old man looked up at the bikers standing around him. Big men, leather jackets, beards, tattoos. But in that moment, they looked like guardians. Jake spoke gently. You're not alone tonight. One biker nearby clenched his fists. Did you see who did this? He asked. The old man nodded slowly. 3 young guys, black car. Jake looked at the others. They understood. Not revenge. Justice. Minutes later, the ambulance arrived. Paramedics carefully lifted the old man onto a stretcher. Before they closed the ambulance doors, the old man grabbed Jake's hand. Why would you help us? He asked. Jake smiled softly. Because someone knocked on our door. The little girl hugged Jake tightly before climbing into the ambulance. Thank you, she whispered. As the ambulance drove away, the bikers stood silently in the parking lot. The cold wind moved through the empty street. One biker finally spoke. Wrong town to hurt an old man. Jake looked toward the road where the black car had disappeared earlier. Then he turned back to his brothers. Let's ride. The engines roared again into the night. But this time, they weren't just riding. They were making sure that no one in their town would ever hurt a grandpa again. And somewhere inside the ambulance, a little girl finally stopped crying because she knew something powerful. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather jackets and ride motorcycles.